When you're raised by covert narcissistic parents, you are often raised to accept behaviours as normal that you should have never accepted. Narcissistic parents in general are very damaging to their children. Coverts have similar behaviours to their overt counterparts. However, the overts are usually a little more grandiose and obvious, even though children don't recognise their behaviour, than the covert, who still has that sense of superiority and entitlement. Narcissistic people in general tend to lack empathy, and a covert narcissist still lacks that empathy. They're simply not interested in their children's emotions or needs. They go all out to dismiss or belittle them. However, they will often do it in a manner where they pretend to care. They sabotage their children and then claim that they did it for their children's own good. They will go all out to gaslight their children, to deny actions, to deny words, to make their children feel like they're overreacting to certain situations. They will try and get their children to lie along with them to those around them. They'll be incredibly offended if their child calls them out on something in front of others. They take this as humiliation, even though they are the ones who are lying, and then they go all out to humiliate their child. They use emotional blackmail such as guilt tripping and shaming and blaming to manipulate and coercively control their children into living life on their terms, to make their children feel responsible for their parents' happiness. They are overly critical of their children. They set those impossible high standards. They withhold approval, attention, affection and support. They make their children feel like they're just not enough. They use criticism to control. So if a child has a natural talent at some form of sport and the narcissistic parent approves of this, yet there's some areas they need to work on, like most of us do, the narcissistic parent will offer that support to help the child improve. Yet as they lack empathy, they're not genuinely interested. They just see the mishaps as embarrassing the parent. So they will go all out to practice, and they will promise if they attain something, they will treat them. Only when the child finally gets it, instead of treating them, the narcissistic parent goes all out to humiliate them. They burst the child's bubble. They are highly controlling. They go all out to dictate the choices and the actions of their children. They micromanage the child's life. So if the child enjoys a sport and the narcissistic parent doesn't, the narcissistic parent will be highly critical of that sport. If the child enjoys painting and the narcissistic parent doesn't, the narcissistic parent will be highly critical. They don't offer constructive feedback. They go all out to demoralize and destroy. Yet the narcissistic parent is also highly sensitive to criticism, and they will react very defensively and aggressively when questioned or called out on their behaviour. They are very quick to anger. So if somebody else calls the parent out on how they're treating the child, the narcissistic parent is the one who will get offended. Being raised by a covert narcissistic parent can be very confusing. You can be left full of anxiety. You can constantly feel like you're invalidated and isolated, feeling like you're alone in the world with no support, having that lack of self-esteem, having that feelings of not being good enough, feelings of inadequacy, having that imposter syndrome, developing people-pleasing skills because you've been conditioned to put others before yourself. When you've been raised by narcissistic parents, recovery is a journey. Seeking professional help is a great start. However, it's seeking the professional help that helps you personally. Learning to set boundaries around your narcissistic parent. You might need to go limited contact or no contact. Learning not to get into the debate and argue with them, to just leave them to it. Practicing lots of self-care, whatever helps you. Exercise, yoga, meditation, new career goals, planning a future and then taking the steps to get yourself there. Showing yourself some self-compassion, treating yourself as you treat others. having a support system, getting a support system around you of people that understand what you've been through, and educating yourself on narcissism so that you can understand everything you've been through and recognise that as great as it is to take responsibility for our own actions, you are not responsible for your narcissistic parents' treatment towards you.